Hello and welcome! This is my annual end-of-year video. In the past I've done a write-up of some of my games with my own silly awards and categories, but since I did my top 100 this year on video, I figured let's do a little end-of-year wrap-up. Of course, this is the end of 2017. This is only counting games that I played in 2017. There's some games that came there were 2017 releases that kind of showed up a little bit late, and I didn't get to try them. But I'm just going to talk about my bests and worsts and some statistics about last year, which has been a great year for games. You might also want to check out my other video that I did with my friend Ilya on his channel, and we'll put a link to it in this description so that you can find it there, where we talk about our top 10 games of the year. I'm going to mention them again here, but you can see them in more depth over there. So without further ado, let's talk about the Board Game Awards, the best and worst of 2017. The first is what I have traditionally called the Steve Austin Award, of course based on Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man. This is a game that makes its own genre bigger, better, faster. It sort of redefines it. It improves it. And the game that I think did that this year is a game that came out kind of late called The Path of Light and Shadow. The Path of Light and Shadow is a deck-building game, but not just that. You're upgrading cards, and you are buying new cards, but you're also moving around a board, and you're attacking. And you have to decide whether you're going to be merciful or whether you're going to be cruel. And it just comes together really nicely and makes deck building, not just something that you're doing for the sake of the game, but gives it a real purpose. My next award is what I have called the Veruca Salt Award, of course based on the moment in Willy Wonka when she sings about how she doesn't care how, she wants it now. This is the game that at the start of the year I just couldn't wait for. And that game for me is the game that used to be called Caravan, but later became known as Century, Spice Road, or Century Golem Edition. This is a game that I had known about for years from listening to the old Plaid Hat podcast, and I was waiting for it, and it kept getting delayed, and it kept getting moved to other publishers. And so when it came out, I was ready for it, and I was not disappointed. It is a fantastic game. I do like the Golem Edition better because it's a little bit more fun, but essentially they're both the same. It's a great little game, very simple and easy to get into, but just a lot of fun. Century Spice Road or Century Golem Edition. The next award I almost didn't give this year. This is what I have called the Sherry Bobbins Award. Of course, knowing that if you cut every corner, you'll have more time to play. This is the game that sort of cuts the most corners, whether they be in production or in rules. It sort of comes out with cheap components. The game that I think gets it this year is a game called Apocrypha. This is from Lone Shark Games. It is sort of a remake of the Pathfinder adventure card game, and it's just really not very good. The cards are very cheap. The art is really not very attractive. The box is much too big, and it just did not come together, to the point that I don't know that I really even enjoyed the game, and that is Apocrypha. The next game, more on a positive note, is the Push Me Pull You Award. This is a game that has a theme that is unique, something I've just never seen before. And that game this year, I've got it right here next to me because I'm hoping to play it again, is Fog of Love. Fog of Love is just a fantastic game. I cannot say enough good about this game. It is essentially a role-playing game, but you're not fighting dragons in a dungeon. Instead, you and a friend are going on a date, and you are reacting to different things, and it's just a lot of fun. It's almost more of an activity than a game. I don't know that you really care about winning, but you're going to tell a great story of a couple that goes through a ringer and either comes out on top or maybe decides that relationship isn't for them. It is definitely a unique take on board game themes, Fog of Love. Next up we have the Ralph Cramden Award. Of course, he used to tell his wife that he would hit her bang zoom to the moon, which isn't a good thing. But for my awards, that is just the game that knocks it out of the park in terms of production. And I think for this year that award goes to Dinosaur Island. Dinosaur Island came at the very end of the year. I think I must have played it on the 31st of December. And it is a little game where you are building up a dinosaur-themed amusement park. Think Jurassic Park. It's essentially if you took the Jurassic Park theme and put it in a game. It just does everything really well. It has nice, big custom dice, and they're all different. And you just draw a few random dice, and those are the ones you use in the game. You've got nice little meeples. You've got boards with good indentation. You've got the money's is nice if you got the deluxe edition, which I did not. I'm just talking about the base edition off the shelf. You got metal coins in, and it comes with little dinosaur meeples that you can use. It's just there's nothing spectacular about it. It's not going to be like Mechs vs. Minions in terms of good production, but it is a well-produced game for what it is, and it's a fun game too that I highly recommend. Another award that I've given in the past is the Fragor Games Award for the most overproduced game. This is a game that is not just good, it's good to the point that perhaps it didn't need to be that good. And this year it goes to, you can't see it, but it's sitting right over here, is War of the Ring, the Collector's Edition. It is over the top. It has nice, well-painted little miniatures. It's got a big fancy box to store everything. It is a lush, lavish production. It's also extremely expensive, but I guess that's because they made it nice. So I guess congratulations, War of the Ring. Next up, we have the award for the worst rulebook. And this is the award I refer to as the IKEA Award. And this one, some of the other awards were a little bit close, but this one, this year, the award for the worst rulebook, hands down, went to Sword and Sorcery. The rulebook is like 50 pages, and there's no index, and it goes in great detail about different things, but then once you start playing the game, you've got to constantly flip back and forth, and it's so difficult to find things. The rulebook really needed some editing, and so it wins the IKEA Award, that is Sword and Sorcery. The next award, a positive award, is the Refrigerator Hanging Award, which goes to the game with the best artwork. And this year's game with the best artwork, it's here somewhere, is When I Dream. When I Dream is a remake of a game that came out last year that I enjoyed, and it had good artwork last year, but this year they must have quadrupled the amount, and they made it a much better production. And this new remake of When I Dream is just spectacular. The art is evocative, some of it's a little bit creepy, but it's a lot of fun. And it's a game that works well with just about anybody, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous game, When I Dream. The next award, back on the negative side, is the Celia Gimenez Award. I think that's how you pronounce it. Remember, she was the woman who decided to restore a picture of Jesus by painting over it and made it look really bad. This is the game with the worst artwork of the year, and this year that goes to Ethnos. Ethnos is a fantastic game. You'll see it talked about on my top 20 of the year, but it is also just a hideous game. I don't know what it is. There's just something about it that just says ugly. And so it gets the award for the ugliest game. The next award we have this year is the Fibber-McGee Award for the worst storage problem in a board game. And this one, hands down, I didn't have to think about it, it goes to Massive Darkness. Massive Darkness, it's just a big empty box, and there's so much stuff in it. I mean, there are miniatures upon miniatures, and they're not miniature, they're huge. I mean, there's one that's literally this big. And you get all this stuff, and it's all this gray plastic, and I can't paint, so it's going to stay gray plastic. And so then you come to the point of how in the world am I going to put it away? And that is a problem I still have not solved. It is in several boxes, and it's a great game, but it is a mess to store. That is Massive Darkness. Not the last, but next up we have the Sweat Hog Award, of course, a reference to Welcome Back, Kotter. And this is the award for the best reprint. And this year's best reprint is a game that I thought I was going to hate, but I ended up loving it, and that is Mare Nostrum Empires. And it is just a fine reprint. It takes some problems from the older game and gets rid of them, and it's just a lot of fun, and it works well with a lot of different player counts. Mare Nostrum Empires, welcome back. The next one, I had a bunch of trouble figuring out which one, and that is the what I have called traditionally the Insert Least Favorite Politician Here award for the most disappointing game. And for me, the biggest disappointment of this year, there were a lot of disappointing games. Now, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of great games, but there were several that I just really was underwhelmed by. Sword and Sorcery, Immortals, oh my goodness, that was awful. Custom Heroes, Sagrada, which everybody rages about, but I just cannot find any reason to like. Days of Ire, Budapest 1956, which I was just chomping at the bit for last year. But the most disappointing game for me was Klondike Rush. I love Red Raven Games. I've loved almost everything they've put out. And when I say almost, I mean literally everything except Klondike Rush. It's a weird auction game, but ultimately everything ends up being worth the same amount, and you're just spending money and trying to get more, and it's just not fun. It just made me angry the whole time I was playing it. I don't think I can ever see myself playing it again. I was just very disappointed by Klondike Rush. Moving through the awards now, we have the award for the biggest surprise, the Monte Navarro Award, the last one you'd expect. And this one for me this year is a game I've already talked about extensively, and that is Mountains of Madness. This game just came out of nowhere to me. It is really a party game. You have to do silly things, and you're working together trying to get up this mountain, but it just works. I mean, everything about this game is just fun, and I had no idea that it was even coming, but I played it once, and I fell in love, and I've played it lots of times. Mountains of Madness was an amazingly good surprise this year. And I believe the last award on our list of awards is what I have traditionally called the, second to the last, the Mormon Standard Time Award, of course knowing that that means showing up a little bit late to your meeting. And that is the old game that I discovered this year. And that game I discovered in Estonia at the board game camp, and that game is called Homesteaders. It was just a lot of fun. I mean, it's been around for 4 or 5 years, I think, but I just had a great time with it. And it was really a surprise, and I don't know why I ignored it back in the day, but I'm sure glad I found it now. Homesteaders. And the last of our awards is the Pavlov Award, and that is the game I am just salivating for, the 2018 release that I just can't wait for. And that game, if you know me, if you know the games I like, this will be obvious. That game is Crystal Clans. This game seems like it's almost a remake of Summoner Wars, which I have been known to like in the past, and still like in the present. And so any new game in that sort of genre, it's by Plant Hat, who did Summoner Wars. I'm just wondering if it's going to be a 2.0 or if it's going to be a compatible, a comparable game that I like slightly less than Summoner Wars, but still really like. Either way, Crystal Clans is a game that I am just so excited for. It can't get here fast enough. I am salivating. That's kind of gross. Anyway, that's the end of our sort of themed awards, and so now we're going to talk about some tops of the year. The first I have is our top 5 board game apps. And these are, number 5, Jaipur. Jaipur was a game that I had played a few times before, but once I discovered it on the app, it just made it so much more fun. I really like Jaipur, and the app is beautiful. It gives you a lot of variety. There's a campaign mode you can go through with different sort of variations on the games. It's just a lot of fun. Jaipur. The next one is Potion Explosion. Potion Explosion is a great game that almost feels like it was based on an app, so it makes sense that we would have an app based on a board game. And it does a lot of the mathiness for you. It helps you streamline how you're going to get, sort of the thought process. But it's a lot of fun, lets you pull those marbles and watch those explosions. Potion Explosion, my number 4 app of the year. Next up, we have Terra Mystica. Terra Mystica is a great big game, and I thought, how could this possibly fit in an app? But it does. The Terra Mystica app it's a little bit, there's a lot going on in the game, so it's hard. There's a lot of, little pop-up menus you've got to go to, but once you get a hang of it, it's a very clean, beautiful way to display the game, and it's a great way to get a game in if you're waiting around for something else to happen. It's a lot of fun. It has good AIs with different response times, which I really liked. It is an easy add to my top apps of the list, Terra Mystica. My number 2 is slightly less polished, but still a ton of fun, and that is Burgle Brothers. Burgle Brothers is a great cooperative game. If you could see over here, I have this huge tower that's sitting on the floor that I use when I play it so I can get the different levels. And the Burgle Brothers app, it brings it to your iPad or other device. Excuse me, it does... Excuse me. I shouldn't try and breathe in while swallowing. It takes a lot of the automation part over, and it runs the guard by itself, which is really the only confusing part for me about the game, is sometimes I mess that up. But in this, it shows you which path the guard's going to, and it really takes that piece out of the game so that you can focus on trying to solve the game and make your heist and escape. Burgle Brothers, the app, is just a great app this year. And my number 1, and this was always my number 1, this app came out of nowhere and rocked my world, and that is Through the Ages. Through the Ages almost replaces the board game. I mean, the app is just that good. It is polished, it has a beautiful tutorial, it allows you to play online, it allows you to play by yourself, you can play through a game really quickly. It's just a ton of fun to play on the app against different levels of AI. It's got challenges, quests, everything you could possibly look for in an app. It looks great, and it actually teaches you to play the game better. I know getting the physical copy to the table became a big priority for me after the app came out, and I played it a bunch of times, and it taught me better how to play the game and how to teach it, and it actually made it, the game move up my top 100 list anyway, because the app is just that good. If you're looking for a board game app, Through the Ages is the one to check out from 2017. Moving on to the next category, my top 5 expansions. Now, this was not really the year of expansions. There were some good ones, but none of them, this was a little bit harder for me to do than some of the other lists. But I eventually, when I started thinking about it, maybe that's because I think of games with their expansions together, and I don't really record the expansion separate. Anyway, my top 5 game expansions were, number 5, Aeon's End, The War Eternal. Aeon's End, great game, love it. War Eternal, great too. It's essentially a standalone game, but you combine them. In fact, I've combined them in mine. I also loved that this company did a lot of graphic overhaul to the game, and for the low price of $10, they gave me everything from the old game again in the new format. I essentially got the new game again for free. Really good way to do the customer service on that. Aeon's End, The War Eternal is just a lot of fun. It gives everything you liked in Aeon's End, it just gives you more. It gives you more nemesis to fight, it gives you more heroes to use. Just a lot of fun. My number 4 is Scythe the Wind Gambit. Scythe the Wind Gambit adds these big airships, and the big airships are kind of like the big mechs. They don't really do that much. They don't change the game that much, but they give you something else to focus on. Each airship comes with a special ability, and it gives you another way to play the game. But even more than the airships, it gives you different endgame conditions, and I love the different endgame conditions. If you want to see everybody be stressed, play with the Doomsday Clock, and you only have 20 turns. It just really changes how you play. Or there's one where the factory is going to blow up, so nobody can occupy the factory, but if you occupy the factory, your people die and you get some popularity. Just a lot of fun. A lot of different changes, enough variation to the game without really adding a lot of complexity or extra rules. Scythe the Wind Gambit, my number 4 expansion. My number 3 is The Bloody Inn Carnies. I love The Bloody Inn. I think I might be the only person in the world who loves The Bloody Inn, but it's just great. And the expansion, it's more of the same. It fits in so seamlessly. You have a bunch of different characters you can use, and they change the game. You've got little events that can be good or bad, and they change your focus a little bit. You've got some items that you can use kind of to give you a bonus in the game. You draft those at the beginning. Just really small expansion that just fits so well with The Bloody Inn. I can't really even see myself playing without it. That's my number 3. The number 2 is Ticket to Ride, France in the Old West. Now, that one's sitting over here on the floor. I'd hold it up, but I'm too lazy. It's a great expansion. It's one of the best expansions. The France expansion is a ton of fun. You've got, instead of having colors already on the board, you're now sort of painting the tracks yourself as you go along. So, you might decide to make this a 5 green track, and it otherwise would not have been. And that sort of sends a message to people, okay, well, he must be going for that because he made it 5 green, and so maybe people will try and take it. But you can sort of outthink people with that. It's a lot of fun. The Old West is a lot of fun, too. You've got this alien, and you're chasing it around, and it really changes the game because you always have to build to something you're connected to. But the France is definitely the superior of the two. And my last one is my best expansion of the year is the Champions of Midgard Valhalla expansion. It changes the game. It takes the game from a game I liked to a game I love. It makes losing in a role a good thing. It gives you something else to focus on. Just by adding, every time you lose a die, you get a little chip, and those chips you can use for buying different powers throughout the game. It's phenomenal. I love the expansion. I like the Dark Mountain expansion. I sort of include that in the same vein because I would never play without both of them. They both just fit in the game. They feel like something the game was missing. I didn't know it was missing, but now that I have it, it's just, I'd never play without it. Those are the expansions for Champions of Midgard, particularly Valhalla. All right, we're almost done here. This is a long video. My next is the top 5 solo games for the year, and I'm just going to go through these really quickly. Number 5 is Too Many Bones. Great little solo game. It's a cooperative game. Works well solo, too. Pandemic Rising Tide is my number 4. I love Pandemic Rising Tide. It is the best Pandemic. I have it. It's sitting over there. I've played it a bunch of times, and I just love it as a solo experience. Even more than the cooperative experience, actually. My number 3 is another game that I just love, and that is Spirit Island. Can't really say more. It's a great solo experience. It's a challenge. You can play with all the different spirits, try to mix things up, and it just really works well. My number 2 is Seventh Continent, a game that I just love. It's way up near the top of my top 100, and it is just a fine game to play, and you can have a good solo adventure. I prefer that one, I think, with someone else, so that's why it's maybe my number 2, but I really love the solo plays of Seventh Continent that I had. And then my number one solo game of the year is Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is a game that I love to play. I know it's sort of popular right now, but when I was playing it earlier this year, I played a good 50 rounds of it just by myself. I played it with other people too, but it was just that much fun. You have a great experience. You can control the people. It's maybe a little easier solo because there's no communication issues, no hidden information. But it works really well. I love Gloomhaven. I'm waiting for the solo-specific scenarios to arrive that I got from their Reprint Kickstarter. Hopefully they'll get here eventually. Anyway, my number 1 solo game of the year, Gloomhaven. All right, now we are moving into the top 20 games of the year. Before we get to them, I wanted to mention a few other notables that didn't hit the top 20 list. We have Charterstone, great game. Fog of Love we've talked about. Gaia Project is a great game. Pandemic Legacy 2. I loved that. I played through the whole campaign in 3 days with a friend. Just a great game. Lorenzo Il Magnifico, great little game from this year. Alien Artifacts, a game I loved. Yokohama, a game I loved. And 878 Vikings, it sort of almost replaces 1775 Rebellion. Little war game. A lot of fun. But none of those made my top 20 list. So here we go, top 20. Now remember, my 1 through 10 I talk about on the video with Ilya, and so if you want to hear more about them, you can go and watch that there. But let's just go through these quickly. My number 20, Too Many Bones. Already talked about it, it's a great game. Number 19, Anachrony. Big, heavy game. I've got it up here. It needs an insert though, and so once I got the insert, I really got the game out a lot more. It's a fine game. Very complicated, sort of hard to get your head around Euro-style game about time travel, but only loosely. And you definitely need the Machines expansion because they just look so much cooler. Number 18, Clank in Space. I love Clank. Another version of Clank. It's an easy add to my top 20. My number 17, Century Golem Edition. I already talked about it this video. Century is a fine game, and I like the Golem Edition better. Number 16, Queen Domino. This is a game I gave everybody for Christmas if I could, because it's just a great little family game. I loved King Domino last year. Queen Domino takes it, makes it better. My number 15, Ethnos. Already talked about it. Ugly as sin, but it's a ton of fun. It's very simple, very fast, and it works really well with any player count. My number 14 is Azul. And Azul is a game that just took everybody by storm. It came out of nowhere. It looked boring, but it was a lot of fun. And I played it with my family this Christmas time, and we just had a fantastic time with it. Azul, it looks beautiful. It feels great. It has these good components. It's just a win, Azul. My number 13 is Majesty for the Realm. Also a good family-style game. One that we played a lot at Christmas time. Very simple, kind of from the design. It was from the designer of Splendor, sort of in that vein. Fast, easy, Majesty for the Realm. Number 12 is Noria. This is not fast. It is not easy. It is complicated. It has a lot going on. It's this game where you're building these action wheels and turning them and trying to get your actions up. It is a lot going on. I have not mastered it, but I think it is a great puzzle and I love to play it. My number 11, Magic Maze. A game that my sister described as the game that makes you hate your family. It is a game where you're trying to communicate with people, and no matter what, somebody's always missing something. That somebody can be me, too. But you're not allowed to talk, and each person can move pieces in only in specific ways. And there's this pawn, this red pawn, and you put it in front of somebody and just pound the table saying, please, you have one task, just do it already. It is a lot of fun. It's very fast, very light. You can play it 4 or 5 times in a night. But it is a game that is as stressful as can be. But easily my number 11, Magic Maze. My top 10, I'll just go through really quickly. You can watch the other video to see those. Number 10, The Dresden Files. Number 9, Mountains of Madness. Number 8, Spirit Island. Number 7, Near and Far. Number 6, Gloomhaven. Number 5, Seventh Continent. Number 4, Altiplano. Number 3, Pandemic Rising Tide. Number 2, Clans of Caledonia. And number 1, my favorite game of last year, Pulsar 2849. I just can't say enough about that game. That game came out of nowhere, and it was all I wanted to play. There's a lot going on. It's not for everybody. Totally for me, though. Anyway, those are my top 20 games of the year. A couple of statistics, just sort of to round this out, because everyone loves some statistics. In 2017, I played 367 games. That's individual, unique games. And I played a total of 2,737 different play sessions, so different times playing games. So of those 367, I played some of them lots of times. Just by the way, both of those numbers are up from 2016, so I played more unique games and I played more times total. I played a total of 262 new games in 2017. That is games that I had never recorded a play before. I might have played some of them. I mean, that might be a slightly inflated statistic because I didn't have data before that, but there were 262 games that I had not played before 2017, according to my data. I played with 99 different people and in 30 different locations. Both of those are down. I played with 101 people last year, 2016, and in 36 different locations, but they're fairly comparable. My most played game of the year was Sentinels of the Multiverse. I played it 417 times. That is up from 379 the year before. And that is because it's a solo game, and so I can get it out and play it whenever I want. I love the game. I've talked about it in my top 100 list. My number 2 was Summoner Wars. I played that 248 times. That was down from 2016, in which I played it 349. But still, 248 sessions of Summoner Wars in a year is still a good number. And it is still my most played game of all time. My numbers, the next are Through the Ages, Onirim, Jaipur. I played Burgle Brothers, Seven Wonders, Gloomhaven, Race for the Galaxy, and Santorini. Those are my top 10 games. Each of those is over 40 times. A couple of them are over 100. Onirim was as well, as was Through the Ages. I was a year in which I played a lot of, most of those games are not 2017 games. In fact, I think only Gloomhaven was. So it was a year in which I played a lot of new games, but I also played a lot of older games that I really like. On the whole, 2017 was a fabulous year for board games. This video may not be that exciting. But it really was an exciting year to play these games, and I'm already off to a running start in 2018. I'm looking forward to some great new additions to my collection, new experiences, playing with new people in new locations. It's just a great time to be involved in board games, and I'm blessed to be a part of it. And so I thank you for your attention, and go out there and play some great games. Good night!